Welcome to the show, everybody. Your host, Michael, on let's see here, Wednesday evening, August 4th. What we're doing is answering the question: are demons real? Believe it or not, this is a question that a lot of people find themselves asking these days. And there's quite a few people, even in the church, that would say, no, they're not real. I'm not one of them, however. I will say, yes, they are real. My first source would, of course, be Jesus himself, which we'll look at here in just a moment. But we need to take this seriously. The New Testament clearly asserts there are beings known as demons, and they are real. And this isn't just some kind of mythology. That's not the way the New Testament treats this topic. This isn't just some way to speak about a corporate evil. There are clearly personal indicators that are described literally in reference to demons in the New Testament. It's not just a fancy way of just speaking allegorically or something like that about some kind of corporate evil. There really are demons, according to the New Testament and the long-standing tradition of the church, which is sufficient for me. And when I speak of the long-standing tradition of the church, I appeal to the rite of exorcism, where priests will cast out demons. And this isn't just some kind of general evil that's being cast out of an individual's impressions and mind. No, it's not the way this thing is treated. It's treated as real spiritual warfare and combat, which is how it should be treated, because they really are beings. I mentioned that Jesus is one of my sources. Let's take a look at that. Let's look at Luke 11. I'm going to start with verse 14. Jesus was driving out a demon that was mute. When the demon left, the man who had been mute spoke, and the crowd was amazed. But some of them said, by Beelzebub, the prince of demons, he is driving out demons. Others tested him by asking for a sign from heaven. So Jesus is casting out demons. This particular one caused somebody to be mute. That does not mean that everybody who is mute is possessed. That's not what the New Testament is saying. The New Testament itself makes distinctions here. Some people just have physical afflictions. Others, and they're just caused by natural problems, or rather, we should say, due to original sin because of the fall, not by anything preternatural like a demon. Some people are just sick. Other people, however, have certain problems like being mute, or there's a person who has an issue in the New Testament with standing up. They can't stand up straight. They have an issue with their back. Now, that could just be a completely natural problem, right? Doesn't have to automatically be because of demons. But in this particular case, it was actually afflicted by a demon. And in this case, the muteness of the person here is afflicted by a demon. But that doesn't mean that every time somebody's mute, it's because of a demon. We don't need to go to that extreme. We also don't need to go to the other extreme and say demons don't exist. We need to take a balanced approach like the New Testament does. So he casts out this demon, and the Pharisees are saying, well, you do this by the power of Satan, is effectively what they're saying. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall. If Satan is divided against himself, how can his kingdom stand? I say this because you claim that I drive out demons by Beelzebub. Now, if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, which is a reference to Satan, by whom do your followers drive them out? So who do your followers drive them out by? So then they will be your judges. But I drive out demons by the finger of God. But if I drive out demons by the finger of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. When a strong man fully armed guards his own house, his possessions are safe. But when someone stronger attacks and overpowers him, he takes away the armor in which the man trusted and divides up his plunder. Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. Now, here we go. And by the way, I just want to point out the fact that he's speaking there about a house divided against itself. This is actually important for multiple reasons, but one thing that it does is it indicates there actually is organization and a hierarchy among demons, which is part of our tradition. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. I just want to briefly note that. Okay. Jesus goes on to say in verse 24, when an impure spirit, that is a demon, it's called an impure spirit, comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. Now, a corporate evil, just some kind of evil in the world, just generally speaking, doesn't speak. It isn't a person. It doesn't say, I will return to the house I left. This is something that is individual. It is personal. There are actual beings that are what we would call impure spirits or demons. When it arrives, it finds the house swept and put in order. Then it goes and takes 7 other spirits, that is 7 other demons, more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And the final condition of that person is worse than the first. And we can spend a lot of time on explaining why this happens and what all's going on there. But I simply reference it to appeal to the fact that this is clearly a personal being. This is not just some way of speaking of some corporate evil. This is not mythology. The New Testament truly asserts that these are actual beings. Jesus himself does so. And if we don't believe Jesus spoke these words, well, we have worse problems at this point than debating whether or not demons are real. Not to make light of that issue. That's a pretty big deal in and of itself, though. So I want to then also look at another passage here. Matthew 8, 28 through 34. Matthew 8, 28 through 34. If you have a Bible, pull it up. Otherwise, just type it in online if you have a computer or a cell phone or something in front of you, if you want to follow along. Otherwise, I'll just read it. Matthew 8, 28 through 34. When he arrived at the other side in the region of the Gadarnes, 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. What do you want with us, Son of God? They shouted. Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time? So these beings are possessing 2 individuals, and they recognize who Jesus is. They confess that he's the Son of God. And they ask him, have you come to torture us before our appointed time? That is before the final judgment. Interesting that they believe the Son of God tortures them or will torture them. It's not the meek and mild Jesus you hear about at Sunday school. This one is torturing demons. Well, I believe it. I think we might need to adjust our understanding of Sunday school version of Jesus, though, because it doesn't jive very well with this text. Some distance from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, if you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs. They have to possess something. Well, they don't have to, actually, but they want to. They would rather possess something than go back to their normal state, their normal location. So they ask to possess these pigs since they're going to be cast out of these 2 humans. He said to them, go. So they came out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town, and reported all this, including what happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus. When they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. Again, much can be said here, but these are clearly personal beings. They are real. It's not just some kind of mythology. Jesus really cast them out, and he has authority over them, by the way. You'll note that. They can't overpower Jesus. It's not this impression that so many people tend to have, and that is there's 2 forces out there, good and bad, and they're just equal forces fighting against each other, struggling against each other. That's not the case. There's one force out there, and it's God, and everything else is nothing. The demons have absolutely no power over God. They can't exist without him giving them their existence, let alone could they somehow overpower him in any way. God could make them cease to exist at any moment. He sustains their existence because he has a purpose in using them to bring about a greater good. But make no mistake here, they are no threat to God. He says something, they do it. They can't contest it. His authority is that sovereign over them, which should be comforting to us Christians, those of us who are in communion with Christ. I also want to look at a couple other passages, but let me answer just some general points here about demons before we do that. We've established that they're real according to the New Testament. And if you don't believe the New Testament, then we have to do a different video on why the New Testament should be believed and is credible. But I'm assuming most of the people who are watching this, most of my audience, have already accepted the New Testament. So I appeal to Scripture itself. And it's sad that I have to do that because there are people who believe the New Testament, but then don't believe that demons are real. And it just goes to show you biblical illiteracy. What I want to now ask is, well, if demons are real, what exactly are they? They are evil spirits, according to Scripture and tradition. Evil spirits. Jesus just called them an impure spirit, an unclean spirit. A spirit is an intellect and a will. They don't have bodies naturally. They don't naturally, by their nature, like us as humans. We're an intellect and will with a body. They're just a pure intellect and will. But their intellect and will is warped and bent on evil and corruption. It is not, their will is not oriented towards good as it should be. It is now oriented towards doing that which is evil, that which is corrupt. We could still say that, well, technically every will is still oriented to the good, but they might, choose a mixed good and be conflicted over one good versus another and then make a bad choice. And that's considered evil, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know about all that. We can have that discussion another time. The point is they're not wanting to follow God. They don't want to choose to obey him. They don't want to do what's right. They want to rebel against him. So they're an intellect and a will. They're an intelligence. They're actual persons. And they have wills. They can choose to do things. We can also speak of them as fallen angels. An angel is just an intellect and a will also. They don't have a body. They're not native to bodies. They're kind of a in between God and humans. But that gap between God and an angel is infinitely large. But they're in between us insofar as God is, well, we could speak of an intellect and will, but simply. Whereas we speak of angels as an intellect and will, a composite being, and then limited, finite, right? They're not omnipotent or omnipresent or omniscient or anything like that. So you have angels, but then you have some who rebel against God. We would call those evil angels, those who are corrupt, those who rebelled against God. The book of Revelation describes this. You can read more about that there, where Satan and a third of the angels rebelled against God. We call those demons. So whenever we're speaking of an impure spirit or a demon, we're also talking about a being that is a fallen angel. And of course, among the angels, there is a hierarchy. You could speak of angels and archangels and seraphim and cherubim and things like that. Well, just as there's a hierarchy there among angels, there's a hierarchy among demons as well. So they're organized in a hierarchy. The text that we saw somewhat reflects that. There are other New Testament passages that speak of thrones and principalities. Those are different kinds of angels. And those would also be used to support the idea that demons are hierarchically structured. So there are some demons that are more powerful than others. There are some demons that have a greater capacity for intelligence than others, and therefore greater evil than others. Jesus spoke about that just a moment ago. 7 demons that are more evil than this other demon, right? Now, we then want to ask, what do they do? What do they believe their purpose is right now? Well, to effectively corrupt whatever God is doing, to undo whatever he is doing. Now, they're not going to be successful, obviously. God's omnipotent. Nobody can form a weapon against him, as the book of Proverbs notes. I believe it's the book of Proverbs. It's been a while since I've seen that passage. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. It's that passage that I'm thinking of. But obviously, if you have an omniscient, omnipotent being, and then you have a being that's not, well, the being that's not can't do anything to the one that's omnipotent. So really, at the end of the day, they're of no consequence as far as a threat to God, but that's their intention. That's what they want to do. They want to try to undo whatever he is doing, whatever his purposes is. They try to imitate him. They're going to be unsuccessful, though. How do they do this? Well, one thing that they try to do is they tempt people. That does not mean every temptation is from the demonic. No, that doesn't follow. Some temptations are just because of original sin. They're native to you. They stem from you. They're a part of your corruption and my corruption. But there are some temptations that could come from demons. Now, it's almost impossible to discern where it comes from. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter where the temptation comes from. We know that we need to reject it, however, wherever it originates from. But we do need to be aware that sometimes demons tempt us. They also try to confuse us. You know, God is a God of order and clarity. What they try to do is undo that and confuse people, put things into chaos. They try to provoke people, provoke them to anger, provoke them to wrath, provoke them to sin. It's related to temptation. And we can also speak about possession. They want to possess the individual. To what end? To sin, to use them for their own purposes, multiple reasons. That doesn't mean that everybody who's possessed is automatically culpable for every action that's done under possession. That's not at all the case. There are some times that somebody is possessed by their own consent. Which brings us to the next point. There's different kinds of activity from demons, and then there's different levels to possession. So let's talk about them. We can talk about oppression. That's the first kind of activity of a demon, and that is something that you can somewhat see in the book of Job, where they effectively try to harm your family, your circumstances, your finances, your family members. They might try to harm them, harm your means of survival, your income, your house, take that away from you. Things that are circumstantial to you, they try to cause problems there. Just like we see with the book of Job, where his family is killed, house destroyed, flock, his cattle destroyed, stuff like that. That's an oppression. There's also obsession, where they try to insert disordered thoughts into your mind at an obsessive rate. They try to get you to obsess over something. It's generally unwanted thoughts that are intrusive to your mind. You don't desire them, but they are there, and it's clear that it is obsessive. That could be, doesn't necessarily mean it is demonic, but it could be demonic. It could also just be OCD, right? Sometimes some of those things look similar. This is why if somebody's experiencing some kind of problem, of course, they'll go to an exorcist, and the exorcist might recommend that they speak to a mental health professional first to rule out some kind of natural problem first before they move on to more preternatural reasons for whatever their issue is. Now, after that, we can speak about possession, and that is where a demon takes possession of a person's body. They don't control their will. They don't control their intellect. They don't know your thoughts. I mean, they can guess your thoughts, and they're really good at that, but they can't control that. They don't know that, but they can use your body as a hand with a glove, right? They can use you as a puppet, your body. But again, they cannot. Um, they can't think for you. They can't make choices for you. They can't know what your inner thoughts are. Only God knows. Again, they can take a really good guess. They're good at that, but that's about it. But they might be able to control your body. There's different levels to it. There's full possession, which is what most people think about when they see stuff like The Exorcist or something like that. They're fully in control of your body. There's also what's called partial possession, which is where they might not be fully in control of the body, but they have some control here and there. Some kind of weird spasms and jerks and shakes and pains in your body. It might be an evidence of partial possession. Most likely, those things are from a natural problem, right? They stem from a natural problem. I'm just talking about those that have reason to believe that there's something demonic going on. Those could be indicators of a partial possession in rare cases. And then there is also what's called perfect possession, where the person is not only fully possessed, but they consent to it. They want to be possessed. I mean, because you can disapprove of this. You can say, I don't want this. But there are those who are perfectly possessed who fully consent to it and want it. Now, there are also things that can be done. Person can immediately consult an exorcist, and by the authority of Christ, the exorcist can cast it out. And that's, of course, what a person should do. If they're struggling with these issues and they suspect it might be demonic, they need to see an exorcist. Generally, every diocese has at least one. So you could just contact the chancery, the bishop's office, and, ask to maybe speak to an exorcist. There's also prayers that every priest can say, even if they're not an exorcist. There's prayers that every priest could say that are known as minor exorcisms that are sufficient for things that are less than full possession. So you could actually get that from any priest. And of course, every bishop ordinarily is an exorcist as well. I mean, a lot of them delegate it to an exorcist, but what I mean by that term is they're the ordinary exorcist, if you will, of the diocese. They're the main one, the bishop. That's why actually a priest can't do an exorcism without the appointment of a bishop. They have to be appointed specifically to that. They have to be under his jurisdiction and under his authority, because ultimately it is the bishop who is the chief exorcist in the diocese. But often they delegate that to a priest for various reasons. Now, of course, some might wonder, well, how could you become possessed? How do I avoid this? Well, unfortunately, there are ways in which a person could be possessed. A lot of times it's associating with and engaging in occult activity like Ouija boards and stuff like that, or seances. Those doesn't mean they always will, but they could cause possession, unfortunately. So engaging in that kind of stuff. There have been cases where there could be a case of possession that came from a very grave sin, like murder, rape, or some kind of really gross sexual abuse. There have been some cases where that has happened, but generally speaking, a possession would happen from the individual engaging in some kind of occult and evil activity that they should not be engaging, like going to um, a psychic, going to a medium and engaging in some kind of activity that is not from God. Some of it could also come from false religions. I mean, if you look at First Corinthians, it's First Corinthians, I believe 10. In fact, I have it pulled up here. 1 Corinthians 10:20. It says, I say that those things which the Gentiles sacrifice, that's the pagans, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I do not want you to be sharers in demons. What the New Testament is saying is these false gods that the nations worship are actually demons. Whether they know it or not, they're actually demons. So the false gods of Hindus, for example, Paul would say those are actually demons. So engaging in that kind of activity as well, false worship, could cause demonic possession. Oftentimes, however, it does not, by God's grace, but one should avoid those things in every case. One should never engage in any of this. Pagan worship, seances, occult activity, you should never engage in it. There's never a reason to ever do it. There's a saying that's out there, you knock on the devil's door and you never know, he might just open the door, right? You invite him in, he might actually come in. There have been many times, fortunately, by God's grace, that people have invited him in and he hasn't come in. But there are those cases where he does come in and it's really nasty and it's a major problem, and it's not something that anybody ever wants to deal with and have to work through. It's a really terrible thing. What can we do then to avoid it? Well, not only avoid that kind of activity, but frequently participate in the sacraments, pray often, pray the rosary, pray the Jesus prayer, whatever your tradition in Catholicism is. Pray the prayers of the church and frequent the sacraments, and you shouldn't have an issue at that point. I have another show that I have to do here in just a moment. I'm going to be on somebody else's channel talking about the magisterium, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But I wanted to just make sure that I didn't miss any super chats here. Looking through just to double check. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and depart. And see y'all tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not seeing any super chats, so we'll go ahead and call it there. I appreciate y'all watching, and sorry if that I didn't get to do just regular Q&A, but we'll do it next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications so you can know when I go live and upcoming shows, all that good stuff. Also, check us out, patreon.com/Reason in Theology, if you want to get access to extra content. In fact, every Thursday, I'm going to start creating a video for patrons only every Thursday. In addition to the video that I do for everyone here, I'm going to do another separate video for patrons only once every week on Thursday, and that will be available for them. So if you want to watch those, you'll need to become a patron. So check it out at the link at the bottom of your screen. Till next time, God bless.
If you're looking to buy or sell a home, office, or any kind of property anywhere in the world, you're going to want to call Real Estate for Life, and they're going to connect you with a Catholic agent. Now, that agent will donate a portion of their commission upon sale, and Real Estate for Life will donate 75% of that gift to a pro-life organization at no cost to you. Call Real Estate for Life at 1-877-LIFE-US1 or text them 248-431-1440. If you care about the pro-life cause, call them now.